and welcome to the Ask Karen podcast. I'm your host, I'm Karen, and I'm here to ask all the difficult questions so that we get to know the stories that we should know about. And as today is our very first podcast, I am really delighted to have join us in the studio today retired Detective Sergeant James Brannigan. James was working with the PSNI for 20 years. He was the lead investigator on numerous murder cases, including one where there was never a body found. He brought this murder through to the conviction and got justice for that family. Hopefully that can be a future podcast. So James is here to talk to us about another very special case today, which is the case of Katie Simpson. When Katie died, it was initially ruled as a suicide. James was able to understand that it was something much more sinister. To know more about Katie's story, you should check out the newly released documentary, which is called Death of a Showjumper. And it's a hard but incredible watch, and it really helps you understand who Katie was as a person. So I'm really delighted to have this story as our first podcast and welcome James in the studio today. James, tell us more about your background and about you.
I was a homicide detective in the police of Northern Ireland for over 80 years. Joined the police 2005, became a detective shortly after, and then main worked on homicide and counter-terrorist work. But it's the homicide work which was a passion and has ended up me sitting here doing these podcasts and documentaries. So good to see Rose. And we just set a photograph from the house, from the scene, from the day Katie had met the phone herself. Linda showed her the photographs and she looks at one photograph and says, "There's her phone." Her phone's a huge part of the inquiry. And she's telling me, "There's her phone." But it wasn't a phone. I knew it wasn't a phone. It was a little makeup box. But that's the statement she wanted to make. So why is this girl telling me that's her phone? So it took the statement as clearly this girl is lying. This is her friend. Katie's dead. Why is she lying about this phone? So it's making me kind of angry inside, but I have to take the statement. Then as we're leaving, she goes, "Oh, but she fell the Thursday before she died as well." And I said to my colleague, "I'm not taking that fucking statement." And he goes, "No, we have to take the statement." I said, "You take it. I'm not taking." I was so angry because clearly she's lying. So he's taking the statement. She's at Victoria Bridge. She's riding, jumping over fences. The horse stops and she goes over the fence. And I said, "What did she fall on?" And she goes, "Sand." And I said, "Well, the sand is soft." No. The sand was wet. It was hard. So I looked at the weather forecast for that period, 2 weeks, and it hadn't rained. I said, "It hadn't rained." "Well, there's poor drainage. It's always wet." And I'm like, just, why are you lying? I just couldn't believe it. Then we went to meet Jill, her other friend, and Jill lived in Oma. And Jill's yard at the farm where the horse was, where she was meant to be trampled by a horse. So this was important. Did this trampling take place? So I went and met Jill. And this was, never forget driving up into the yard. It was January, winter's morning, and pull up, and there's Creswell parked in the yard as well. And we were meant to be doing this on the quiet, and there's Creswell sitting there, and it's kind of shit. But thankfully he just drove off. He saw us, knew we were police. We were in plain clothes, but kind of figured. So I got to speak to Jill. I said, "Jill, Katie's trampled by a horse here." And she was, yeah, it's trampled out in field out there. "Did you see it happen, Jill?" She says, "No." I said, "I can see where grass is trampled." I said, "How did you know Katie was trampled by a horse there?" It's like, was her face imprinted on the ground? And they was being facetious because here's another girl lying. "Where, G?" Yeah. So she goes, "But come over here." And she takes me into a horse box. So look, she could get bruised here as well and in the horse box. And I looked at her and says, "Why are you telling the bruises? Katie hung herself." And I just walked away. It's like, why are you trying to tell us about these bruises? Katie hung herself. So it was just bizarre, and it was causing more concern by these girls are trying to say Katie's got all these bruises, and now someone's trying to tell us where her phone is.
And it's bizarre for her friend circle to be telling you that and trying to somehow make you think something has happened.
Yeah, but what are they trying to make me think has happened? She's killed herself. Why did they want me to think she's bruised herself? And this it just did not make sense to me, and I was trying to join the dots
Did
myself.
it create other suspects at that time?
No, but there was no suspect at this time. We were just trying to find the truth. And when you're trying to find the truth, the more and more questions are popping up. You know, you have to understand there's no murder investigation at this point. It's just trying to establish what happened to Katie. But as you're going along, things are not making sense. Myself and my colleague with years of experience dealing with homicides, we'd never experienced anything like it. Then the following day, went to meet Shane, and I never forget, met him at this Katie's boyfriend. And met him at on the showground, empty car park, mirroring the police car. He pulls in the van, freezing cold, and he goes, "What's this about?" And said, "We're just doing investigations into what happened to Katie." And he seemed a bit apprehensive, but he said he had an old phone with text on it. And he explained what had happened. He'd been friends with Katie, and they started going out, but they didn't get much time together because Creswell was always controlling Katie.
How long were they dating for?
So it would have been only a number of weeks, but not getting much time together. Was mostly over text. Out of Katie's car, we got phones, all kept phones of Katie's, and it was disgusting, the text between her and Creswell. Like, a text would be, "Ring, one after the other. Ring, you bitch. You better fucking ring me. You ring me or I'm going to." And just all those texts, it was just horrendous. But then when I looked at Shane's phone, it's normal. There's normal text between a man and woman.
That's a young boyfriend guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he said he had this phone, and he told us what happened was they'd been going out a short while. He was in Derry, she was out in Moy in Armagh because she'd done another show in Armagh on the Saturday. So Saturday night, she was out. So she rang him. He travels all the way down 60 odd miles to pick her up. And they both stayed in my mother's house that night. The first night, spent a night together. And then he travelled back to Derry next morning, and she went to her show in Armagh. So he said he'd show us the text messages. So the next day, I was aware that the major investigation team in Derry hadn't spoken to any nurses yet. One of the nurses was also a family friend, this girl called Miriam. And I said to Miriam, I said, "You go to the police today and make your statement." She goes, "I will." So I was in the car park at McDonald's on the Creswell Road in Derry waiting to meet Shane. When Shane arrives in, Miriam's in, she's going to make her statement to the police in Derry. So Shane's in the car and sitting in the back seat, myself and my colleague in the front, and he hands me the phone and he shows me the text messages. And I looked at the text messages and my jaw dropped. It was nice text messages between the two of them. How they left the house and just joking about what had gone on the night before. A nice, innocent text. And then about midday, "You need to tell, Creswell's going to ring you shortly, or Johnny's going to ring you shortly. Tell him you were with your dad last night. Somebody has seen you travel through Roma." So what happened was somebody saw Shane travelling north that morning. And now Creswell knew, because somebody in the horsey community, so now Creswell knew. So the text was, "Johnny's going to ring you. Make sure you tell him you were with your dad last night." And he was like, "Why are we doing this? Why are we lying? He's hardly going to kill you." And then the next text, Katie goes, please, I'm begging you. He'll go mad." And Shane agrees, "Okay, or I'll say it was with your dad." But then this was the motive. This is what, and I'll never get reading the text from Shane. He'll hardly kill you. But Katie knew how dangerous it was if Creswell had a bit this, but he didn't know at the time. He didn't even know where we were stories across. I shocked reading these text messages, and phone rang. It was Miriam. So I gave with the text to Colin, read that. Miriam says, "Oh, met the police." Said, "Did you tell them everything? All the nurses saw, all the suspicions they had." "Yeah, told them everything." "Brilliant. Did you make a statement?" "No." They said there was no need. I was shocked. because she had really important information. So I said, Miriam, go back, tell them you want to make a statement. And tell them you want to make a statement. So I get back into the car with Shane, and then the phone rings, Chief Inspector from Derry, saying, when's the last time you spoke to Miriam Sweeney? I said, about 5 minutes ago. But she can't be used as a witness because she's lied. So what are you talking about? Since we asked her when she last spoke to you. And she said, it was yesterday, but you were saying 5 minutes ago. I couldn't believe a Chief Inspector doing this. The statement is taken by Detective Constables. Here's a Chief Inspector. So I said, just take the statement. And he turned around and started saying, who the fuck do you think you are? He says, you're a disgrace. Everybody thinks you're a disgrace. You know, you're just trying to turn suicide into murder here. You're trying to create another Charlotte Murray for yourself. Everybody thinks you're a joke. And just this vitriolic abuse going on. In the end, I just hung up. Said enough was enough. Because of what I'd seen in the car, seeing the text messages, this was serious then. This was, in my view, murder investigation. So later that day, I went to my senior officers. I said, get those people off my back. I did another report, submitted to the superintendent, and on another conference call a week later, they all asked the same question again, who thinks this was murder, who didn't. And most of the call said, yeah, it's a murder, apart from the two in Derry saying, no, it wasn't. And he said, no, it has been a murder investigation launched, and he was given to me to my team to investigate. So we're 60 miles away from where this happened. Yeah, it was given to us to investigate. Yet there was a major investigation team in Derry where it happened, and he knew not to give it to them. But at that point, it was now a murder investigation. But we couldn't tell anybody it was a murder investigation because we couldn't alert into it. So we still had to do it on the quiet.
Okay, so now we have a murder investigation.
Yeah, so this was the pressure now on, just to some extent, because I'd been pushing this, and it was like, right, now you have a murder investigation, and it is, at that point, you don't want to look a fool, but it's about answering the questions. So the pressure was on, and it was extremely difficult because we couldn't tell the family we were doing murder investigations. You couldn't tell anybody because we didn't want to mount the suspect. So you're doing this with one hand tied behind your back, also knowing there's a very dangerous person out on the streets at the moment. I was talking to Paul about it, and one of the first person to know it was a murder investigation was our boyfriend Shane, because we asked him to come into Strano police station in January, and we explained to him what happened, and we explained to him what we knew.
The importance of what he had shown you.
Yeah, the importance, and that without him bringing that forward, we wouldn't be where we are today. But then the heartbreak for him, knowing that it was his interaction with Katie that led to that, and he was blaming me. I met him a couple of weeks ago with his partner, and she's trying to support him, and he's still very cut up over it. It was because of me she died. Right, no, it's only because of you we got Creswell. And that's the way he should be looking at it. And he can't blame himself for it. What our boyfriend he known, this thing was, when he wasn't getting replies to the messages because we knew Creswell had the phone, he seen he should have gone to the house. He should have gone and knocked on the door. I said, you only started getting out with this girl. You hardly going to knock on the door. Why didn't you text me? And that's the guilt he has. But as we told him only a number of weeks ago, said we wouldn't have caught Creswell if it wasn't for you.
This case really affected so many people, actually. Like, it's important to understand that there was tens of people affected by this in such a horrible way.
It's had a huge effect on so many people, so many families, and the ripples to this go far and wide. And I didn't expect them to get as far as they did, and I didn't expect things to get as bad as they did after this. I didn't expect to uncover what we uncovered. I'd never experienced anything like before in my 18 years of investigating murders, and so many police were affected by it, so many families were affected by it. I'm often asked the question, if that phone call came around again that you got an 11th to post, 2020, would you lift the phone again? Yeah, you would. You have to do the right thing. And it's about doing the right thing. So we now had a murder to investigate. And we believed there was a murder that was trying to prove that Katie didn't die, as Creswell said she died. So one important thing was the pathologist to look at photographs again, and he gave a statement saying all those lines on her legs and arms were tram-line bruising. What tram-line bruising is where you're hit with a rod-type implement. Where the rod impacts you, there's no bruise, but either side there's a bruise, making it look like tram lines. So she's beaten with a rod-type implement on her legs and arms. So this was major to us. She just before going into hospital.
Shouldn't be caused by trampled overwork.
No, so the pathologist specifically said it was a rod-type implement. So then I knew a lot of samples had been taken from Katie at a post-mortem, at what the mo tested. And shocked us was that we got on vaginal samples that were taken, we recovered Creswell's DNA. And this shocked us. He was having sexual intercourse with Katie. On around the time she went into hospital, they were close to that time, and it was like, wow, this is right back. What is happening here? This isn't saying he's killed her, but what is going on?
Yeah, that there's a dimension to that relationship that you didn't know before.
Yeah, that we didn't know before. Well, you couldn't really call it a relationship. And this is something we discovered, and you can't call it a relationship. I saw those text messages on the phones. He was abusing her, controlling her. But we had a lot of work to do, and we had to do it with one hand tied behind her back. So what we focused on was what happened to Katie from the time she left Shane till the time she ended up in hospital. So that whole period at the show jump event and getting back to the house. So between the ANPR, or number plate recognition, cell site analysis, CDR queries your phone connecting to the network. How is it connecting to the network? What network is your phone? What mast, is your phone connecting to? So all this information gathered, and what we found out was, I suppose to give you what happened, we know now what happened to Katie. Well, she was at that show in Lurgan. Those text messages started to go to Shane. She was concerned. Shane had been seen travelling north. We know from what happened to Abigail Lyle that Shane was controlling the phones. That Creswell was controlling the phone. She did not control her phone anymore. We could see that Creswell's phone and Katie's phone left Lurgan, went up to Omagh, from Omagh to Lifford. They're moving together and moving into one car, or one course box and then car. So we can see they are in the same vehicle and their phones are together. So we believe the two of them were together. Go from Lurgan, Omagh, Strabane, then from Strabane they cross the border into Republic of Ireland for about an hour, comes back, goes to Claudy, place outside Derry for another period of time, and then ends up back in the area of Gordonessy Meadows where they all lived together at about 20 past midnight. So we see this Creswell's phone and Katie's phones are together, and what we surmise is the two people are together at that point in time. So what we knew of Creswell and how we wanted to interfere in people, the more we investigated it, it was shocking to know what Katie had gone through that night, how she suffered that whole night. We didn't know until we'd have to interview Creswell. We didn't know. What we knew was they were together most of that evening. The concern we had, and the big concern we had, was he's a dangerous individual and he's still out there. So we had a job to do when we arrested him. Usually you arrest somebody, you can talk to people, you can take statements, or when there's a murder happens, but we couldn't talk to anybody. So we couldn't go take statements off people. It was extremely difficult, but we knew we had to move. So on the 3rd of March, we put the arrest operation in place. So what that entailed was hitting the house about 5 o'clock in the morning, arresting Creswell, separating himself from Christina, getting Christina into a specialist AB interview, which is achieving best evidence, is where you go into a room, make it look like a living room, and you audio and video record it and just try make somebody comfortable that maybe has been a victim or is a significant witness and try get the necessary information out of it. So we had to get her separated from Creswell. We had to talk to Haley again. We had to talk to Rose, Jill, inform the parents, get family liaison officers put in place, seize all the phones we needed to seize to see what was on them. So it was an awful lot of work to do. But you're against the clock, because as soon as you arrest somebody and they're detained, you have to either charge them or release them within 72 hours. Either you can get court extensions or you can either get a superintendent's extension. Then it'll be a court extension to extend it further. But you can only get a court extension if you're waiting on significant information to come in, where it be forensic examinations or further information. We didn't have that because we were doing all our work up to this point.
Mm-hmm.
It was extremely difficult, and I'll never forget the night before, because it was sleepless nights coming up to this. Were you right? You know, there was a lot of pressure. So we hit the house about 5:30. I'd rang Paula the day before. I said, Paula, I'm going to be in Derry at 8 o'clock. Can we meet you? Knowing that I would need somebody to look after the children. So we get to Creswell's house. I briefed all the police. We arrive up. I have one officer to arrest him, one officer to take Christina. And the bang on the door. None of the answers were knocking on the door. We know there's people in the house. There's children in the house. What's the proportionate way to go in there? What's proportionate? Sorry, you can't use excessive force,
Yeah.
You know somebody's in the house. Why aren't they answering? So eventually somebody comes down and answers the door. You get in, Creswell's standing there. I meet him for the first time like this with a nose murder investigation. So I sat him down, says, this woman is going to arrest you for the murder of Katie Simpson. Listen to what she's going to say. So she arrested him, cautioned him. I said, where's your phone? He says, I don't know. I lost it yesterday. Went upstairs, beside the bed, the 2 cords or charging flexes. No phone on Creswell's, but Christina's was there. So I took Christina's to be examined. But he said his was lost. And to see what's going on, he hasn't lost his phone yesterday. So he was arrested, taken away. Christina was taken for a witness statement. And then Paula came down. I rang Paula. And she was shocked. Herself and Jimmy came down and upset. Police are now officially saying Katie has been murdered. It's a shock, even though she kind of knew something was wrong. And then I get around to Gorvessi Meadows, the house where Katie had hung herself. I've been looking at these photographs for months, and now I was actually getting into the house for the first time. And I was extremely nervous going in because there could be something in that house to kill the case. There could be marks on the banister. There could be, this shows somebody was hanging from here. So I was very apprehensive going in, and it was a new person in the house, so it was all totally different photographs. It was clean, it was tidy. The photographs, the house was an absolute mess. But get up to the banister and there's not a mark on it. Not a blemish on the banister, and the strap though, which she was meant to use to hang herself. But when I looked at the same photographs, you had the strap in the second step of the stairs. It was like a nylon strap from a laptop bag. That type that's attached here with crocodile clips either side, where not crocodile clips, the clips where you clip onto a ring at either side of your laptop bag or sports bag. There's that type of strap. But there was no sign of anything. But it was fascinating me getting back into the house. They're getting into the house for the first time when we had it seized as a crime scene. Creswell was being interviewed. So we had the trump card. We had the DNA, Creswell's DNA inside Katie. So we'd use that at an opportune time to show that he's lying. And we asked me questions and then we produced the DNA. That's how you're meant to use it in a structured interview process. So first interview, Creswell starts to say how they left the showground. They went across into Donegal. They had sexual intercourse at a beauty spot. They got back into the car, went to Clawley, had sexual intercourse over the bonnet of the car, got back to the house, had sexual intercourse again in the house. And we're listening to this kind of, right, he's admitting being in a relationship. He said it started when she was 17. My dad had started before that, but he's careful to say he's 17. So he's just, and what he's doing in the interview, he's trying to control it. He's throwing it this noise to put the interviewers off. And they're kind of shocked. It's taken away their trump card. He's talked away about this new information, and that's going to, he's hoping it's going to consume the interviewers. I mean, it kind of took the steam out of me a bit, because why is he saying this? You know, he's taken away our trump card. And I was concerned at that point. He's just,
I'm not fine.
yeah, and he was just being smart and doing it. So Rose is being spoken to. She's in England. Jill is being spoken to as witnesses. Hayes being spoken to for all sticking to her story. Christina isn't saying much in her interview, so nobody's saying anything different. And it was getting concerning. Creswell was telling the story about how he was in a relationship with Katie, and the first day I was concerned, where is this going? How are we going to prove that Katie did not kill herself? And the whole time during this investigation, the senior officers coming to me, well, how did she die? So you can't get into that argument. You just have to prove Katie did not die the way Creswell said she died. That's all you have to do. If you want to think how she died, you're going to lose, because you're going into an argument with one person who knows how she actually died, and he can beat you in that. So all we had to do was prove that Katie didn't die the way Creswell said she died. But that's easier said than done. The first day, you have a conference each end of each day to say what's happened in interviews, what's happened with witnesses, what's happened with door-to-door inquiries, what's happened with family, and all this information is pulled in. And the first conference was all a bit of an anticlimax. There was no smoke and gun. There was no, oh, we're progressing. It was, we were still in the same position we were before we arrested him. The fact is, he's telling us now that he's in a relationship with Katie. So the big thing happened on the second day when the interviewer said, well, you told us how you found Katie. Draw out how she was hanging. Draw out how the ligature was tied up. So he starts drawing out in the interview how the ligature is over the banister, and he puts it in a V shape. It's over once, around, spin it over again, and then down. And as he's drawing it out, he finishes and he goes to a solicitor. That's not long enough. And the solicitor goes, I wasn't there. And I knew at that point, he's making this up. And this was
And he's working it out as he's drawing it.
As he's drawing it. And it was like, how do we make this work for us now? Because he knew that he's making this up. And he's asking the solicitor, how is it long enough? So we knew we had the alleged ligature, and we had the exact length of it. I got a strap the same size. I went to the scene we had, and I replicated what he did. So then you put it around twice as he did and bring it down. It's about that short of where she was kissing the wood. So it couldn't have happened.
She's like a full fit.
Oh, and more. But then, right, give him a fool's pardon, maybe made a mistake. Just wrap it around once, and even you should wrap the ligature around once and come down.
It's still not.
It wasn't long enough. And the most shocking thing I found, to try undo the ligature with one hand, you can't do it. But it's not to say it's impossible, and that wouldn't stand up in court. But I knew she didn't do it. She has not hurt herself. I knew it at this point. I couldn't undo the ligature with one hand, because he's saying he came in, saw her hanging, lifted her up with one hand, unclipped the ligature from around the banister, or the strap around the banister, and got her down. Well, he says he got her down, head facing up the stairs, but then got her down, head facing down the stairs, got her into the car, and then as he's driving her to hospital, the paramedics ring her, and he stops the car and tries to give her CPR at the side of the road. And this is his story. And how he'd actually found her was when he came into the house, on the phone, saw her hanging, and gives the description of how her feet were barely touching the stairs. She was kissing the wood, and he was just shocked. But I know it didn't happen, and I had the information now that it didn't happen, but it's about proving that. So the information of the story Creswell had was that he left the house that morning, went to drop his kids off with his mother in Greysteel, drove back, walked into the house and sees Katie hanging. She's on the phone to Haley, tells Haley to call the ambulance. This is what Haley said. So they're both kind of marrying up their stories. However, we could see from the cell site analysis and the cell site analysis that we did on the phones that when he took Katie to meet the ambulance, he's saying at that point he lost the phone because he was throwing stuff off the back of the seat trying to get Katie lying flat to give her CPR. So he probably lost the phone there. It's okay, but that's what you want to say. But what we can see, when he dropped the kids to his mother's houseboat, his phone and Katie's phone go in the one car. But Katie didn't leave because Katie is now back in the house. So Katie's phone and his phone go to her mother's. So what's telling us, Katie can't ring for help. Katie can't do anything. So he comes back to the house, puts Katie in the car, goes to the side of the road where he meets the ambulance, and the phone goes off the network. But then when Katie's in the hospital, the phone goes back on the network in the hospital. And when that was put to an interview, and you deal with a sociopath, and they're always kind of trying to control the narrative, he now couldn't answer this. So he asked for a break. And he went back in and said, I still have the phone.
So he admitted it at that point.
They still had the phone. Why did he have the phone? So it was buried in the field. He gave us the directions how to get into the field, and the fence post it was buried beside. When we sent police in, and they found the phone buried. Police searching the house also found the phone he said was lost. It was in a utility room, buried under clothes. A bottom box, a box of the clothes, and then the bottom box was the phone. And that's the delay in answering the door. But we thought, right, we got our phone. This is going to be huge. What's on the phone? That he kept it. But there was nothing on the phone. It was minimal. You would have about 30 to 40,000 messages on your phone between all your apps. Generally, that's what people have. It's 30 to 40,000 messages per phone. Her phone only had 5,000 messages. So it had been extensively cleaned. However, when we looked at the mechanics of the phone and what was happening to the phone, what shocked us was we know the paramedics, the ambulance service rang Creswell and told him to stop the car, pull into the side of the road and give CPR. So we have the time the phone call started and by the time the call ended. And at the point during the call where the ambulance service are telling him do CPR and he's going 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. At that exact time, Katie's phone is going on to flight mode. So what he's actually doing is 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, putting the phone on flight mode. He's not giving CPR. We know now he does not want to help Katie. And as the paramedic said, he turned up at the scene. Katie was a dead girl in the car. We just got her heart beating again. But at that point, he did not want to save Katie.
So how are you now able to charge him with murder? Like, what is everything that you're bringing together?
The picture we were able to build from the evidence we had was what had happened the night before Katie died, or the night before Katie went into hospital, or the day before Katie went to the hospital, sorry. Katie went to the show after spending the night with Shane. Shane was travelling through Ulmer, was seen by a woman called Stacey Houston, who saw Shane. Stacey contacted Shane's ex-girlfriend, a girl called Stacey Wacklin. Stacey contacted Creswell and said Shane has been seen going north through Ulmer. This is how we can see for the phone communication, this is how it all panned out. Shane then starts asking Johnny starts asking Katie, where was Shane last night? He was seen going through Ulmer today. And that's when the text message started. She's begging Shane, tell him you're with your dad. Tell him you're working with your dad. You brought them this way at all. So now he's in charge. He's controlling the phone. Katie's phone stops communicating with Shane. She's not answering any text from Shane. They travel up through Ulmer into Strabane and then across into Lifford. They have sexual intercourse, as he says, in Lifford. They then have sexual intercourse in Clodagh, which is about 20 minutes away from the house. But shortly after that, about 12 midnight, Shane texts Katie again, said, is everything okay? And the text comes back, yeah, why do you think something isn't okay? Oh, well, I thought it was because of what happened last night. What do you mean what happened last night? And Shane says, because we said together. At that point, they are not at home. But in the text, they say they're at home, but that's Johnny saying. But at that point, now things have turned very dangerous for Katie. Creswell now knows that Shane and Katie had spent the night together the night before. And
which he's already suspected, and
he's already suspected, but had no proof. And now he has the proof from what he did to Abigail. You can see what Katie's gone through that night and what she is going to go through the rest of the night. It's going to be shocking. We don't know what exactly happened to Katie. All we do know is that she didn't hang herself. We don't know what kind of night she had, and I shudder to think what type of night she had in that house. The last person alive to see Casey alive was Rose de Montmorency, right? And I believe she knows more about what happened. She was in that house that morning. She knows why Katie didn't go to work. She knows the truth. And she has been convicted for withholding information in relation to this investigation. When the next morning, as we know, Creswell says she's found hanging, takes her to the ambulance takes her to the hospital.
So who was in the house the night that this was all happening to Kitty? Because so you mentioned the kids were dropped at the grandmother's the next morning. Were they in the house that night? And where was Rose?
The night Katie came back to the house, the night before she went to hospital, in the house when she went in, was Rose de Montmorency Wright, her sister Christina, and her 2 children. And now it's Johnny and Kate here in the house together. So the next morning, Christina leaves first, about 6:30 to go to work in her yard. Rose and Katie were meant to leave at 7:30, but only Rose left at 7:30. At about 8:00, Johnny leaves with the 2 kids to go to mother's house, comes back 8:20, finds Katie hanging herself. We know that didn't happen. The disturbing thing for us, whatever happened to Katie, happened in front of those 2 children. And we know that they've obviously seen what happened. And that was of great concern to us in social services. And the thoughts of that, it's shocking to think that somebody would do that in front of 2 kids, up while 2 kids are in the house. All this information, and in relation to the length of the ligature, we got photographs taken of somebody the same height as Katie, along with the ligature and how he was saying was tied up and how she was placed, and we could see it didn't happen, and we took photographs of it. When we went to meeting with the PPS, it's usually your senior officers will fight the case with the PPS, but it's left up to me to do it. And the PPS wanted to know is how Katie died. I said, you don't need to know how Katie died. You just need to know she didn't die, how Creswell said she died. And the senior prosecutor says, no, we have to know. And I said, no, you don't. You didn't know Charlotte Murray. Charlotte Murray will never recover her body. Yes, you convicted somebody of murder. And he put his hands up and goes, okay, you have me. And at that point, we're allowed to charge him with murder. And I travelled from Belfast, Derry, and it was a happy drive up to go see him in the custody suite in Derry. Pulled him out of the custody suite, went up in front of the custody sergeant and read out the charge, and charged him with murdering Katie on the 3rd of August 2020. And
how did he respond to that?
He would have been prepped by his solicitor was happening, because the solicitor would have told him. But at the same time, for me to be standing there beside him, it's more probably impacted for me than him. He's aware of this. I've been waiting for this for 6 months. And it was extremely satisfying to do it. And then when I went outside, I had people that had worked with me in St. Paul, and told them that he'd been charged with murder, and we were all delighted because they were all in the dark. I couldn't communicate with them, so they knew nothing up until discharge happy, and then the family all knew. So it was huge relief for everybody. Then things changed, and things took a turn that I weren't expecting to take. That was the 6th of March. He was in court. On the 17th of March, I got a call that Christine and Hayley wanted to meet me. And Christine and Hayley met myself and a number of other officers, and they started to tell me how they were being abused, and Hayley was also in a sexual relationship with him. And Christine was saying how her arm had been broken by Creswell. Hayley was saying how she observed Creswell beating Christine and Katie at different times. I asked Hayley, "How are you travelling to Derry that day? Was it to clip horses or to have sexual intercourse with Johnny?" She goes, "Suppose go to have sexual intercourse with him." And she was telling me about how she was being controlled, and I believe she was being controlled by him for years. That was the start, and I spoke to Women's Aid before this. How did he deal with these women? Because I could see some were being controlled. She said that they told me is to deal with them with velvet gloves, and just go softly with them. And I did, went softly with all the women when I was talking to them. And go doing that, I met Hayley, brought in for another statement, make another statement about other incidents that happened with herself from Creswell. And she came into the ABE suite, the kind of care suite, is like it's like a living room. And I said, "Just one thing troubles me, Hayley, can you explain it?" And they turned the laptop around, and on the CCTV, after Katie's been taken out of the house, Creswell and Hayley's car come back in convoy. And I said, "How are you in convoy?" And she goes, "Oh, we'd met before I went back to the house." And I was like, "What do you mean?" She goes, "Oh, he told me to meet him at a junction, and he said he needs to go back to the house to have a cold shower." And I'm shocked at what she's telling me, so I had to let her talk. He said she got back to the house, he had a cold shower because he didn't want the steam coming up, and the police to see that he had a shower. He asked her to pick up his clothes and clean the blood up off the stairs. She put the clothes in the bag, and then I've showed her footage of her leaving the house. The bag says, "What's in the bag?" It says Katie or Johnny's clothes. She put them in the boot of the car, went to the hospital, and then Jill Robinson travelled from Coma up to the hospital to get the clothes with Hayley, to travel back down to Oma, about 40 miles away, to an external laundrette, wash the clothes, then take them back up to Grey Steel to his mother's house and put the clothes in his mother's house. And while Katie was in hospital, Creswell took the women down to under the Craigavon Bridge in a car and said, "I'm going to tell everybody Katie fell from her, was trampled by a horse yesterday. I'd given her a beating the night before, and I don't want the police asking me about the bruises." So all the women knew something was wrong, but they all covered it up. So Jill, Hayley, and Rose were withholding information and covering up the murder of their friend. And the more this unraveled, I couldn't believe it.
But eventually then Hayley comes out and gives you this information.
Yeah, but then we have to arrest her. And not arrest her, she was interviewed under caution.
Mm-hmm.
Christine was interviewed under caution. She admitted to what she knew. But Jill and Rose weren't admitting to anything. So we arrested Jill, arrested Rose. And you take Rose, a 19-year-old young girl, utter with mouth, and how she in the custody suite now being interviewed. And I'll never forget doing the interview, and we're talking to her, and I turn around to the tape deck, and all I hear is, "Are you fucking listening to me?" She screams across the interview. I'd interviewed hardened terrorists, other murders. That had never happened to me in an interview before. And in the interview, she says, "Yeah, I know Johnny had given her a beating the night before. So why didn't you tell police? I wanted to have Johnny's back." And were you being controlled by Johnny? No. And she was just, her and Jill were given ample opportunity to say they were controlled, but everything about Jill and Rose shows me they weren't being controlled, that they were doing part of Johnny's work. And after Katie died, Jim and Rose ended up living together. And it just shocks me that how they ended up covering up this murder.
Yeah, how does that even happen, actually?
There's a level of control he has, but where they are, especially Jill, and where she's travelling to the incident to patch it up, to try fix it up, and telling the girls what to do. It's shocking. So the girls all pleaded guilty. Prior to the trial, we thought Johnny would plead guilty. He didn't, which I was shocked with, but wasn't surprised because he wanted to always control the narrative. First day of evidence in the court was damning. All the evidence laid out. And when I heard it all laid out, it was even hard to listen to, even though I knew it all. It's all laid out bare. Nobody, I think, left that court that day thinking he was innocent. Then the next day we turned up to court, and just seeing what would happen next, and there was a bit of commotion, and then we were all told that he'd killed himself. And it was anger, real anger, frustration, younger than the person dead, but this was Katie's voice being silent. It was his last bit of control, and his last bit of control of Katie and controlling Katie's voice, and he didn't want it to come out what happened to Katie. And this is part of the reason I'm doing this and doing other documentaries, is to make sure this never happens again.
Yeah, so I think super clear that on the first day, the evidence was so damning that Creswell knew what would happen, and then he has taken his own life the next day.
Yeah, because he was too much of a coward. He couldn't face prison. And he knew he'd no way out of it, and we had him trapped and cornered at that point. Yeah, it's a shocking case. But as I say, it's trying to make sure it never happens again, and it's part of the reason I've set up this charity, the Katie Trust. And what we're doing is replicating the help we gave Katie's family, as in get questions answered. With these families who lost a loved one, they need to have those questions answered. Unfortunately, we're shocked by the amount of people that are coming forward with waiting families at the moment.
I was about to say what's the response, because you just started 6 weeks ago?
18th of July, and
so in 6 weeks you have 18 families?
18 families we're trying to help who have serious questions over the death of a loved one, and I think I estimate 5 to 6 of those are actual murders. And it's a lot of work we have ahead of us, but with a lot of people, with 16 people now working with us, which is good. Some great people working with us, and we have a lot of work to do, but we're shocked that the
response.
The response, what it is, this whole area of hidden homicides, and we are dealing with sociopath like Creswell and other sociopaths out there, where these domestic murders are seen as kind of crimes of passion or kind of a flare up of violence. Most of them are well planned, are planned meticulously, and they're being controlled by somebody who's able to manipulate people easily. So when statutory agencies turn up, oh no, she was the alcoholic, oh, she was depressed, oh, and there'll always be excuses. And we've seen it before, and unfortunately, Northern Ireland having one of the highest rates of domestic murders, it's fertile ground for it to happen again.
Okay, so I think just to wrap it up then, James, what do you think is going to be the legacy of this whole situation?
So the legacy, or how do we try change things? It's the police always deal with the symptoms. The courts always deal with the symptoms. The prisons just deal with the symptoms. It's a big changing and having a mindset change in relation to relationships, domestic violence. And the one thing we're trying to bring out is all these investigations I'm looking at that are concerned about, and look at Katie's case, it's all about isolation. And the sociopath needs to isolate the person. If you have a loved one that's going to be isolated, or a friend, the English attitude is to, oh, it's not our business. So we not interfere. Interfere. Find out what is happening with your friend. It's better off falling out with your friend or your loved one for a couple of weeks rather than this be a grave for the rest of their life. And all these families I'm dealing with, their pain now is, could we have done something? So it has to be a mindset like drink driving. It has to be a mindset like smoking. Isolation isn't one whacking them up for these people, and people cannot be isolated the way they have been isolated, and we have to change the mindset in relation to that.
Thank you for that. So that concludes our very first podcast. And I truly just want to thank James for sharing Katie's story with us today. It's an incredible story. And again, if you want to watch more, go check the documentary Death of a Show Jumper. If you've been moved by the story that you've heard today, or you're a family who feel like you have a similar circumstance or have lost a loved one and you're not sure about the circumstances, please reach out to James and his incredible team at www.thekatietrust.com. Likewise, but obviously different, if you're somebody who can help, you have some sort of legal expertise, some sort of trauma support expertise, we would also love to hear from you, because it's these partnerships that are going to help us reach more families and help them. If you're able to help in any way, please do go to their website, www.thekatietrust.com, and help. Stay tuned. We have more amazing podcasts coming. We have more amazing stories, and I'd thank you for listening today.